welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing a movie that was made in 2020, has been shopped around at various festivals, and finally got its major distribution release yesterday on VOD platforms. I watched it on Amazon Prime. I'm talking about the movie An Ideal Host. Written by Tyler Jacob Jones and directed by Robert Woods, and in the interest of full and open transparency, I do want to state for the record that I do know Robert Woods. We are both part of a Patreon community through Spooky Astronauts, and that's how I learned about this film. So when I approached him about reviewing it, I gave him the same spiel that I give to anybody that approaches me. I don't promise a good review, only an honest one. Robert agreed to this, and here we go. So this movie opens up on a little farm out in the middle of nowhere, Australia, as we get introduced to the two main characters of Liz and Jackson, played by Nadia Collins and Evan Williams, respectively. And they are planning a bit of a shindig, a nice little dinner for friends to come over, and they are being quite meticulous about it. There is an ulterior motive in that they have already been engaged, but nevertheless they are planning a big proposal to do between the main course and dessert. And in this we learn about Liz and just how detail-oriented she is and wanting to put on the perfect little dinner party. And of course, things go haywire when everybody shows up, and things don't go quite as planned. An uninvited guest also arrives. Things are just kind of getting little monkey wrenches tossed in the works, which is driving Liz just a little bit insane. And then things go really wrong when the horror element of this movie starts taking place. You see, at least one of their guests, and possibly more, are more than they appear and could possibly have nefarious intentions. And this devolves into a game of who can we trust, who can't we, what do we do about the ones that we can't, and so on. Now, this was billed as a horror comedy, and I could see both of those elements shine through. This is also a small little indie production, and I could also see some of those elements really shine through. This film does make a lot of amateurish mistakes, both on a technical level and on a script level. On the technical side of things, it's one of those things that you just kind of learn by doing, like having a brightly lit interior shot where it's dark outside, turns the windows into basically mirrors. Hello, Mr. Cameraman! Likewise, when you have a special effect of blood being pumped out of there, you need to be able to keep the tube that's connected to the syringe out of shot. And a half dozen other little things like that. But I'm not here to pick nits. I'm here to talk about my enjoyment of the film, and I found myself enjoying it quite a bit by the time the end credits rolled. My major issue on a script level kind of comes to the point that it took me a little while to find my love for the movie. We get introduced to the characters and what they're about, and by and large, they're fairly one-dimensional. Things are happening, they're cute, I had a little guffaw here and there, but it wasn't until the horror elements really started springing to life that the characters started to flesh out more, and we started to get that humor as well. But it wasn't even until half an hour into the film that the horror elements even started getting approached, and it was a little bit beyond that things started to get kinda nuts in the best way possible. Once things really started rolling, I felt like the film finally hit its stride. It did take some patience to get there though. Additionally, I had a little bit of difficulty understanding whether or not this movie was subverting tropes or just kind of playing it the simplest way possible. There were a lot of moments in here in which it's kind of tried and true and done extremely well by other movies, but things like we don't know who to trust and we're all very tired, that kind of thing. It seemed like that element was firmly in play here, but rather than lean on it and turn it into something interesting there, it kind of just addressed it for 5 minutes before finally just outing themselves, and here we go. So as far as not knowing who is who and why and so forth, the movie just kind of revealed itself and let the mayhem ensue from there, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just kind of had me scratching my head wondering again whether it was subverting the tropes or just taking the easy route. The part of me that saw the cameraman in the window constantly was kind of leaning on the latter. However, there was a lot of self-referential meta-character dissection that was happening that kind of led me more towards the former.
Well, I guess that's why she places so much emphasis on external validation to achieve personal happiness, yeah?
As it stands, I'm still not entirely sure, but again, at the end of the day, once the end credits rolled, I did find myself with a smile on my face and ultimately enjoying the experience. It's kind of one of those things where you have to be knowing what to expect with this. It is going to be a little bit of mayhem, but it's also going to be a little bit limited by budget. The characters are going to be somewhat one-dimensional, but they're also going to be performed reasonably well. At no point did it really feel like the actors were trying to memorize their dialogue as they were speaking it. It felt very natural, and in a dialogue-heavy, low-budget movie, that's really something. So this was definitely not the most raucous comedy I've ever seen, nor was it the most gory, out-of-bounds horror film I've ever seen. But for a small little indie production with plenty of rough edges that needed sanding down, I do think that it delivered fairly well on the comedy, the horror, the characters, and the surprises. So if you're in the mood for a big budget thrill ride, I would say look elsewhere. This is not the movie for you. But if you are in the mood for something small, something intimate, and something somewhat surprising, I do recommend the 2020 movie, An Ideal Host. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you on my next review. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.